The transmission arrived not with a blare of alarms, but with a whisper, a thin, oscillating signal buried in the background radiation of the cosmos, overlooked by every major observatory until a grad student at a defunded Argentinian telescope flagged it as possibly intelligent. Within hours, the signal was decrypted, its simplicity more terrifying than complexity. You are being observed. Judgment is near. The message repeated every 7 hours, each time in a different Earth language, ending with an audible pulse that triggered erratic power surges across military satellites. For 6 days, nations scrambled to identify the source, deploying every resource short of launching nukes into the sky. And then the sky answered. A massive ship, matte black and unreflective as void itself, phased into low orbit above the Pacific. It did not descend, did not speak, did not move. It only watched. Cities below it lost power. Tides shifted slightly, inexplicably. Earth, for the first time since a moon landing, had a single topic of conversation. In the United Global Command Center beneath Geneva, Commander Daewon Lin stood over a digital map of Earth, marked with electromagnetic disruptions and escalating civil unrest. His uniform was crisp, his voice precise, but his eyes betrayed sleepless calculation. "This is not an invasion," he said, scanning the room filled with generals, scientists, and world leaders beamed in through hololinks. "They've made no demand, no movement. They are waiting." "For what?" asked President Elena Graves, the elected chair of Earth's Emergency Coalition. Her silver hair was tied tightly at the nape of her neck, and her voice, though diplomatic, had a blade beneath it. "That's the problem," replied Daewon. "We don't know, and the more we don't know, the closer we get to shooting out of fear." Elena turned to Dr. Hannah Ramirez, the linguist who had been the first to decrypt the message. She'd barely spoken since the council was formed, but now she leaned forward. "They're not asking. They're informing us," Hannah said quietly. "They've already judged us. The observation isn't for their benefit. It's to confirm what they believe is true, that we're unworthy," said Elena. "Or worse," Hannah added, "that we're dangerous." The room fell into a temporary silence, filled only by the low hum of the orbital shield monitors. Outside, the alien craft loomed over the Pacific like a divine verdict. No weapons were visible, but none were needed. Its presence was weapon enough. At the southern edge of the room, a younger council member, General Mahir, leaned in. "Why now? Why not 50 years ago? Or 100? Maybe we crossed a threshold," Hannah answered. "Maybe the point wasn't when we reached space, but when we proved we couldn't handle it." Daewon interjected. "The bigger question is whether we respond. If so, how? Words? Weapons? Silence?" The debate fractured into familiar lines. Some, like Daewon, advocated for measured response, an open signal, a call for parley. Others insisted that Earth couldn't show weakness, that the aliens were testing them, provoking them. Every hour of inaction was painted as surrender. But Elena knew better. "They're not testing us," she said, stepping to the center of the chamber. "They've already seen what they needed. Hiroshima, Rwanda, the rising oceans, the way we turn on each other when the lights go out. They're just here to decide if it's too late." That night, the ship moved for the first time, only slightly, a barely perceptible shift in orientation. But it was enough to trigger a cascade of panic. Markets crashed. Riots flared in 7 cities. 3 rogue nations issued separate launch threats within an hour. Daewon stood on the balcony of the Geneva complex, staring up at the dark blot in the sky, a god with no face. Elena joined him, a tablet clutched in her hand. "They're offering a dialogue," she said. "We just received a direct signal. Coordinated, secure, encrypted with our own quantum keys." He looked at her, incredulous. "They're using our tech?" She nodded. "They're not just watching. They've been here longer than we knew. Long enough to learn our language, our math, our fears." The tablet blinked, displaying a single line of text from a new transmission. "Meet us where no nation stands alone." Hannah interpreted it immediately. Neutral ground, a place above Earth, but not of it. "The moon," Daewon said. "Lunar base theta. It was the only place that fit. Remote, demilitarized, and currently hosting no more than a skeleton crew of researchers. The alien vessel adjusted course, its destination unmistakable. "We send a delegation," Elena said. "All major blocks. No weapons. Just words. You think they'll listen?" Day One asked. She stared at the stars, where constellations now flickered behind the alien hull. "I think they already have. Now they want to see if we can." Day One didn't sleep that night. He read and reread every transmission, watched every simulation. In his gut, he knew this wasn't diplomacy, it was sentencing. But maybe, just maybe, Earth had a final word left to speak. As dawn crept over Geneva and the alien ship disappeared beyond the horizon, Day One sent a command. "Prepare the launch. Assemble the council. It's time." A new message blinked into existence from the alien relay now perched in lunar orbit. For words, devoid of threat, yet echoing with finality. "You have been heard." And for the first time in human history, silence felt like judgment. The docking mechanism hissed and clicked as Earth's delegation stepped onto the lunar base, their boots echoing in the hollow corridor. Lunar Base Theta, once a symbol of international unity, had long been reduced to a scientific outpost, silent, stripped down, and sterile. Now, it was a stage for what could be Earth's final performance. Commander Day One Lin adjusted the collar of his navy blue formal uniform, his eyes scanning every inch of the curved hallway. Even here, he couldn't shake the instinct to assess tactical advantages, exits, camera placements, potential ambush points. It wasn't paranoia, it was muscle memory. Behind him walked President Elena Graves, her expression calm, composed, and unreadable. Her stride never faltered, even though she was fully aware that they were about to sit across from something that had effortlessly eclipsed Earth's military might. They entered the chamber without ceremony. The room was vast and ovular, with panoramic windows facing Earth, now a swirling orb of light and shadow. The ceiling arched with embedded panels that glowed softly, mimicking an artificial dawn. A single, long table dominated the center, a corridor of smooth glass and unknown circuitry that pulsed with subtle, rhythmic light. Already seated at the far end were the visitors. The alien on the left had the stature of a human, but none of the familiarity. Its skin was a latticework of obsidian and amber, ridged and organic, as though grown rather than born. It blinked with vertical slits, its mouth unreadable. It wore no armor, no weaponry, just a textured suit that shimmered slightly in the chamber's light. This was Zarvoth, the one who had spoken to the transmissions. Next to him stood a silent figure, towering, featureless, clad in a flowing onyx mantle that seemed to distort light. Its head was elongated, its presence oppressive. No one had yet heard it speak. But instinctively, the humans had assigned a name, Varian. On Earth's side, the seats were quickly filled. Day One sat opposite Zarvoth, Elena beside him, General Mahir, the fiery young strategist from the African Union, and Chancellor Roth of the European conglomerate took the remaining seats. Behind them, security officers and aides hovered silently, instructed to do nothing unless the world was ending, and even then, only if told. Zarvoth inclined his head in greeting, a movement both diplomatic and alien. "Speak," it said, its voice resonating directly in their minds rather than through sound. The tribunal listens. Elena leaned forward, folding her hands on the glass table. "We are here in good faith, to open dialogue, understand your purpose, and if possible, reach peace." Zarvoth tilted its head. "There's no peace to reach. Only judgment to complete. Your opportunity lies not in negotiation, but in acknowledgement." "Acknowledgement of what?" Day One asked, voice flat. "Your failure," Zarvoth replied. "As a species, as custodians of a world rich in potential. You're consumed, conquered, and corrupted. We do not speak in metaphor. We speak in data. Pattern. History. You observed us, yes," Elena said, "but did you speak to us? Did you help? Or only watch?" For a fraction of a second, the alien's eyes shifted. Was that amusement? Would the tiger pause for instruction before it devours a gazelle? Zarvoth asked, "Your nature precedes your words. You speak of peace only when war becomes unprofitable. General Mahir leaned forward, frustration thinly veiled. And what gives you the right to judge us? By what authority? By the authority of survival, Zarvoth said. We are the latest voice in a chorus older than your atmosphere. Civilizations before yours reached this threshold. Some rose. Others fell. Varian took a step forward then. The air thickened. The room dimmed, not visibly, but perceptibly, as though the chamber responded to its will. This is not a conversation, Zarvoth continued. This is confirmation. But tradition grants you a final submission. The table's center lit up. A holographic sphere shimmered above it. Earth, dotted with glowing red clusters. These are your unresolved atrocities, Zarvoth said. Wars, famine, exploitation, each allowed by inaction. Your planetary consensus, this united global coalition, was formed not in hope but in fear. President Graves stood slowly. Her voice, though quiet, carried weight. Yes, we have failed, but we have also created, healed, explored. You measure our darkness, but not our light. Do your records show every hand that fed a stranger? Every life saved in a flood? Every child who chose kindness over cruelty? A pause followed. Even Zarvoth was still. The tribunal does not ignore these, it said finally, but the ratio is skewed. You delay extinction, but never progress beyond it. Day One rose then, voice like iron. So you came here not for dialogue, but to declare, to tell us that our fate was sealed before we even sat at this table. Zarvoth blinked once. We came to offer you the dignity of facing truth. A silence passed, pregnant and suffocating. Then a sudden chime echoed to the room, sharp and artificial. Roth's aide, standing behind him, fumbled with a tablet. A live feed flickered on the table, unprompted. What is this? Day One barked. The feed clarified. A coastal military facility. Earth-based. An unauthorized missile launch. No, Elena whispered. Not now. Varian raised its head slightly. The missile arced skyward target. The alien vessel in Earth's orbit. Zarvoth did not flinch. Nor did Varian. The image froze, then vanished. You have sealed your fate, Zarvoth said. But Day One stood firm. That wasn't us. That wasn't this council. Does it matter? Zarvoth asked. You speak of unity, and yet your hand still reaches for the blade. We didn't order it, Elena said. Please, give us a moment. Let us prove. Varian's cloak lifted slightly, revealing intricate, shifting lines of light beneath, like a celestial circuit awakened. There is no time, Zarvoth said. The tribunal has observed all it needs. Your act was the final echo of a long and bloody melody. A low hum began in the walls. You are not terminated. You are excluded. Day One gritted his teeth. What does that mean? Zarvoth looked to Earth, then back at them. It means you no longer have audience. With that, Varian turned. And for the first time, the humans in the room felt what no weapon could produce, the sense of absolute insignificance. Zarvoth followed. The door hissed open, and the light within the room dimmed by a fraction. Day One slammed his hand against the glass table. This isn't over. But Elena knew better. She stared at the silent Earth through the window, blue and glowing and unaware of what had just transpired. It may have just begun, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. As the alien vessel began to depart the lunar surface, silently rising like a shadow dismissed by the sun, a chilling realization settled into the hearts of Earth's finest. They were no longer being judged. They had already been dismissed. Earth didn't explode. The skies didn't rain fire. No armada descended to scorch cities into ash. The alien vessel simply withdrew, slowly, majestically, slipping into the dark above the lunar horizon. For hours, Earth's governments waited for the second strike, the ultimatum, the annihilation they assumed would follow. But nothing came. The silence was worse. Back on Earth, panic spread faster than power could be restored. In the absence of an obvious enemy, humanity turned inward. Conspiracy theories flourished like weeds. Some claimed the alien threat was fabricated, a ploy for global control. Others believed the aliens were gods, punishing the unfaithful. Cults formed overnight, offering salvation through obedience or sacrifice. A few nations declared martial law. Others fractured under the pressure. Markets collapsed. Power grids fluctuated. Faith in leadership crumbled. In Geneva, Day One Lin sat in the dim command center, watching satellite feeds of growing chaos. Cities in flames, refugee columns swelling along borders, riots sparked by whispers. His uniform lay across the back of his chair, untouched since his return from the moon. He hadn't slept since the delegation returned. "They're not coming back," he muttered, eyes fixed on a blank screen where the alien ship's signature had last registered. Hannah Ramirez stood behind him, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "You think we've been abandoned?" "No," he replied. "Worse. We've been quarantined." She said nothing for a moment. Then, in a voice thick with disbelief, she asked, "You think they've sealed us off?" Day One nodded, his voice dull. "I think the judgment wasn't destruction. It was containment. We're the dangerous variable in their equation. A planet marked as hostile, cordoned off from the rest of existence." President Graves entered the room quietly. Her posture had shifted since the moon, more rigid, more burdened. She carried the weight of Earth's rejection like a shroud. "Status update?" she asked, bypassing pleasantries. "We lost communication with 4 more orbital satellites," Hannah said. All were equipped with long-range signal arrays. The aliens left something behind, some kind of interference field. "We can't transmit off-world anymore, not even passively. We're caged." Graves sat slowly, her eyes dark. "Do they think we'll self-destruct?" she asked. Day One didn't answer. An aide entered, face pale. "There's something on the news feeds. You want to see this." A screen lit up. Footage from somewhere in the United States. A glowing rift, hovering several feet off the ground in a field of wheat. A portal, unnatural and shimmering. A small reconnaissance drone emerged from it, non-human design, unmistakably alien. It hovered silently, scanned its surroundings, and then disappeared through the rift, which promptly collapsed behind it. "Another observation tool?" Hannah asked. "No," Day One said. "A test." Within minutes, reports flooded in from across the world. Similar rifts opening in dozens of locations. Always brief. Always silent. No attacks. No contact. Only watching. "They're still here," Graves said, voice taut. "Not here," Day One corrected. "Just close enough." Back at the Emergency Council, paranoia bloomed like rot. Chancellor Roth argued for planetary shields and nuclear readiness. Mahir pushed for localized martial control. Dozens of fragmented military groups, fearing abandonment, had already begun massing power. No one trusted anyone. Peace had collapsed in principle, even if war hadn't yet erupted. Elena Graves stood before them, calm despite the disorder. "This is exactly what they expected of us," she said. "Our fracture is the confirmation they were looking for." "They provoked it," Roth shot back. "They poisoned the global order and now sit back and watch us tear ourselves apart." "They didn't need to provoke it," Day One said, entering the chamber. "They just removed the illusion that we were united." The house was already cracked. They knocked away the paint. Silence followed. Hannah stepped up beside him. "We need to shift our thinking. They won't return to negotiate. They don't need to, but they're not entirely gone." They left the door slightly ajar. Graves frowned. "What are you suggesting?" "Another message," Hannah said, "but not through words. Through action. They're still watching. If we demonstrate something different, something they don't expect, we may still change the outcome." "Change it how?" Mahir asked. "They've sealed us in. What does redemption even look like to a civilization that sees us as a disease?" Hannah looked to the council. "It looks like restraint. Cooperation. It looks like us not imploding under pressure. If they're waiting for the collapse, then we deny them that. We endure." The suggestion was thin, fragile, but it was the first plan that wasn't built on weapons or fear. A week passed. The world shifted. Tentative alliances began to reform. Aid was dispatched between former rivals. Power was decentralized. The idea of survival through unity, once a talking point, became imperative. Graves pushed for the formation of a real planetary assembly, not one bound by treaties and national interests, but by necessity. Day one oversaw the demobilization of regional weapon systems. Mahir helped coordinate food distribution across famine zones. Roth funneled economic relief toward crumbling infrastructure. The aliens did not speak, but the rift stopped appearing. Humanity remained on edge, balancing on a knife's edge of collapse. Yet something new stirred beneath the surface, a grim resolve, not born from hope, but from shared desperation. On the edge of the Sahara, at one of the former rift sites, a group of children played. They didn't know the names of the delegates or the full weight of the alien judgment. They only knew the rift had vanished, that the sky had not fallen, that the adults seemed less afraid each day. Day one visited the site alone, standing where the air once shimmered. He placed the sensor at the ground and let it hum quietly. "If you're still listening," he said aloud, "then understand this. We are broken, but we are trying. And maybe that's more than you expected." He didn't expect a reply, but as he turned, he saw something embedded in the sand, half-buried, metallic, a fragment. From the drone? From something else? He bent, brushed it clean. The surface glowed briefly under his touch, then dimmed. A message flickered across it in ancient alien symbols, then slowly translated. "Your observation continues. What you do next matters." He stood slowly, heart racing. The silence wasn't final. It was conditional. The fragment was unlike anything they had seen. Scientists debated its origin, but the message inscribed on its surface was irrefutable. Your observation continues. What you do next matters. For President Elena Graves, it was less a reassurance and more a verdict, delayed but definite. She carried the fragment with her always now, a metallic reminder that every decision she made was not only judged by humanity, but by forces beyond it. 6 months had passed since the tribunal's dismissal. Earth's surface bore the scars of its near collapse, but something unexpected had bloomed amidst the devastation. Discipline. Nations once defined by mistrust now cooperated out of grim necessity. Resource-sharing agreements had replaced trade wars. Weapons manufacturing plants were converted into modular housing factories. In a subtle but powerful shift, survival had become a collective objective. Yet the weight of being watched never lightened. In the subterranean headquarters beneath the Alps, now known as the Earth Continuity Command, Daewon Lin reviewed the day's intelligence with Hannah Ramirez. They stood side by side before a vast screen, its digital topography marked by thousands of pulsing indicators. Conflict zones neutralized, 8 hubs deployed, ecological restorations underway. Deforestation in the Amazon is down by 60%, Hannah said, scrolling through data feeds. And the African Union's freshwater restoration project is operational ahead of schedule. Day one gave a tight nod, his face unreadable. And the outliers? Hannah hesitated. Eastern provinces of the Eastern Bloc are showing signs of divergence. Rogue commanders, private armies forming. They're calling it a human sovereignty movement. He cursed under his breath. It was only a matter of time. We're sending envoys, scientists, not soldiers. He raised an eyebrow. Will they listen to scientists? If they don't, then they prove the tribunal right. He didn't respond. Instead, his eyes drifted to the side console, still displaying the encrypted scan from the alien fragment. The message hadn't changed, but its implications deepened with each passing day. That evening, Elena stood before the Global Assembly, addressing leaders both present and connected via holographic relay. The Assembly Chamber, formerly a lavish hall in Geneva, had been stripped to bare function. No flags, no emblems, just rows of decision-makers beneath a circular dome pulsing with soft white light. "Our progress is fragile," she began, "but progress nonetheless. For the first time in our species' history, we've turned crisis into cohesion. But we remain under scrutiny, not by each other, but by those who judge us unworthy. Let that guide us, not as fear, but as focus." A hologram flared to life beside her. The Earth, slowly rotating, surrounded by a fine mesh of unknown energy, a field the aliens had left in orbit, passive but unmistakably present. "This is the net they cast," she said. "Not a weapon, A warning. We must never forget that we are not alone, and we are not trusted. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded. After the speech, in a private chamber deep beneath the assembly floor, Day One confronted her. "You're steering too close to reverence," he said quietly. "They watched us, judged us. They gave us no opportunity to explain, to grow. Now we bow to their expectations." Elena's eyes were steady. "We don't bow. We endure. And in doing so, we become something they didn't anticipate." "Do you really believe we'll ever be invited back to stars?" he asked. "That there's a redemption arc waiting?" She didn't answer right away. Then, finally, "No, but I believe in proving them wrong." A week later, a signal was intercepted from deep orbit. It was faint, filtered through the interference field, but it was not human. The language matched the fragment. Automated decryption began immediately. 40 hours later, the message translated. Vector anomaly detected. External origin. Breach event probable. The room froze. For months, Earth had assumed the alien field was a cage. But the message hinted at something else. Something trying to break in. Day One leaned forward. Breach from where? No one had an answer. But 2 hours later, the sky over Antarctica rippled like disturbed water. A black spindle-shaped craft pierced through the clouds, silent and smooth, its surface shifting constantly like liquid obsidian. This wasn't the tribunal. Earth's defense systems, what remained of them, stood down by order of the assembly. Aircraft scrambled, but none approached. The object made no aggressive move. It hovered near the periphery of the alien field, oscillating, as if testing it. In the Geneva Command Center, Hannah analyzed the readings. "It's not from the same civilization," she said. "Different energy patterns. Different structure. It's probing the net." "Could it be hostile?" Graves asked. Hannah hesitated. "Possibly. Or curious. Either way, it's not from Earth." And it got in. For the first time, it was clear. The field wasn't just a wall to keep Earth in. It was also meant to keep something else out. Hours later, a response signal was detected, not from the black ship, but from the alien network above, a return pulse, a warning. Then, a small vessel, unmanned, unmistakably tribunal design, descended from orbit. It didn't touch Earth. Instead, it deployed a single device, a beacon. No message, no contact, just a machine. The beacon activated and cast a shield around the mysterious ship, immobilizing it in stasis. Day One stared through the screen, stunned. They intervened. Elena nodded slowly, not because they trust us, but because, for a moment, their fate and ours aligned. A new message arrived via the fragment, slower this time, each symbol blinking into meaning with precision. Containment maintained. Threat external. Monitor behaviors. Judgment paused. No one cheered. No one even spoke. The message was as close to mercy as Earth would ever receive. But it was something else, too, an opening. Hannah turned to Day One. "They're not watching to condemn anymore. They're watching to see what we do with the time we bought." He exhaled, the first real breath in months. "Then we build. We heal. We prepare." "For what?" she asked. He met her gaze. For the day they opened the gate, not to punish, but to invite. Outside, across a fractured but mending world, humanity stirred with new purpose. They were not free, not forgiven, but they had been noticed for their unity, their resolve, their refusal to surrender to what was expected. And in the stars above, for the first time in living memory, Earth's signal flickered. Not a cry for help, nor a scream of defiance, but a whisper of endurance. They were still here, and they were still trying.